I should have known something was wrong when I found the guest room door slightly ajar. In 15 years of marriage, Melissa never left doors open. Everything in our house had its place, its purpose, its perfect angle. But there I was, home early from the Morrison renovation job because the tile shipment got delayed, and that stupid door was cracked open like a broken promise. The sounds hit me first. Low murmurs, then something that made my stomach drop like a stone in deep water. I'd heard those sounds before. Hell, I'd made them with my wife back when we still pretended to love each other. But these weren't coming from our bedroom. My work boots felt like concrete blocks as I approached. The floorboards, which I'd installed myself 3 summers ago, creaked under my weight. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape what my brain was about to process. Through the crack, I saw them. Melissa, my wife of 15 years, the woman who complained when I left coffee rings on her precious mahogany table, was on her knees in front of Owen Grant, my brother-in-law, my sister Tessa's husband, the man who'd sat at my dinner table every Sunday for the past decade, eating my food and apparently planning to screw my wife. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Tessa, my own sister, sitting in the corner chair with her phone pressed to her ear, watching the whole thing with the detached interest of someone observing a mildly entertaining television show. "He should be home soon," she was saying into the phone. "You need to see this." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Tessa's name flashed on the screen. She was calling me, right now, while watching my wife cheat on me with her husband. "Hello, Jack," Tessa said when I answered, her voice carrying clearly through the phone and from across the room. "I think it's time you knew what kind of woman you married." Melissa and Owen froze. Owen stumbled backward, his face flushing red as a stop sign. Melissa's eyes went wide, then narrow, then calculating. Even caught in the act, she was already working the angles, figuring out how to spin this disaster into something manageable. "Jack," Melissa started, rising slowly, smoothing down her skirt like nothing had happened. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed, actually laughed. The sound came out harsh and bitter, like broken glass scraping concrete. "Really?" "Because it looks like my wife was just servicing my brother-in-law while my sister provided live commentary. But hey, I'm just a dumb contractor. What do I know about what things look like?" Owen was frantically tucking in his shirt, his face now somewhere between purple and green. "Jack, man, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd love to hear this explanation." "Did you trip? Did your pants just fall off? Did my wife's mouth accidentally collide with your—" "Enough!" Melissa's voice cut through my sarcasm like a blade. Even now, caught red-handed, she was trying to take control of the situation. "We need to talk about this like adults." "Adults?" I pulled out my phone and started recording. "You mean like adult film stars? Because that's what this looks like to me." Tessa finally stood up, ending her call. She looked pleased with herself, like she'd just solved a particularly challenging puzzle. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for months, Jack. They've been at it since last Christmas." Last Christmas. When Owen had volunteered to help Melissa bring in groceries from the car. When they'd taken 20 minutes to carry in 3 bags. When I'd been in the kitchen, making coffee for everyone, thinking about how lucky I was to have such a helpful brother-in-law. "Get out," I said quietly. "Jack, we need to discuss—" Melissa started. "Get out!" The words exploded from me with enough force to rattle the windows. "All of you, get the hell out of my house!" Owen was already moving, practically sprinting for the door. Tessa followed at a more leisurely pace, still looking satisfied with her handiwork. Melissa stood her ground for another moment, her jaw set in that stubborn line I knew so well. "This conversation isn't over," she said. "Yeah, it is." I kept recording as she walked past me. "But don't worry, I'll make sure everyone gets to see how it ended." After they left, I sat in my living room for 2 hours, staring at the video on my phone, watching my marriage implode in high definition. The tile work at the Morrison house could wait. My whole world had just shifted off its foundation, and I needed to figure out how to rebuild it. Or maybe, I thought, as I watched Melissa's performance one more time, I needed to figure out how to tear down everything else instead. The Morrison job site became my sanctuary. Ripping out old tile, scraping adhesive, demolishing what didn't work. It was therapeutic in a way that my marriage counselor, Dr. Peterson, would probably find concerning. But Dr. Peterson had never walked in on his wife cheating with his brother-in-law while his sister provided color commentary. 3 days had passed since what I was now calling the discovery. Melissa had been staying at her law firm's downtown office, claiming she needed space to think. Owen had apparently told Tessa he was visiting his sick mother in Albany, though we all knew his mother had been dead for 5 years. The lies were coming so fast and thick, I needed a scorecard to keep track. My phone buzzed constantly. Melissa trying to explain the situation. Tessa sending cryptic messages about family loyalty. Even Owen had the balls to text me asking if we could work this out like men. I'd responded by forwarding him the video with a message. Sure, let's work this out at Sunday dinner with your wife. He hadn't texted back. I was mixing mortar when my daughter Lena showed up at the job site. 16 years old, all attitude and glued to her phone, she stood in the doorway wearing the kind of outfit that cost more than most people's rent. Melissa's influence, not mine. Dad, we need to talk. About what? I didn't look up from my work. The Morrison bathroom was going to be beautiful when I finished. Clean lines, perfect angles, everything in its proper place. Unlike my life. About you being a complete a-hole to Mom. That got my attention. I set down my trowel and really looked at my daughter. She had Melissa's sharp features and calculating eyes, but right now she just looked like a confused kid whose world had been turned upside down. What exactly did your mother tell you? That you're having some kind of midlife crisis? That you're making up stories about her and Uncle Owen because you can't handle her success? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Stories? Is that what she called them? She said you've been acting paranoid and jealous for months. That you planted some kind of recording device in the house to spy on her. Melissa was good. I had to give her that. She'd taken the truth and twisted it into something that made me look like the villain. Classic lawyer move. Control the narrative before the other side can present their case. Lena, sit down. I don't want to sit down. I want you to stop whatever game you're playing and come home. Mom's a mess. She's been crying for 3 days. Your mother is crying because she got caught, and not because she's sorry. Caught doing what? Having a conversation with Uncle Owen? Dad, you're being crazy. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. Not the explicit parts. I wasn't completely heartless, but enough to make the situation clear. Lena's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, disgust, and finally anger. You recorded this? I recorded what I walked in on. That's illegal or something. You can't just record people without their permission. In my own house, with my own wife? Yeah, actually, I can. Lena stared at the phone for a long moment, then handed it back to me. This doesn't mean anything. Maybe they were just, I don't know. Maybe there's an explanation. There is an explanation. Your mother is cheating on me with your uncle, and your Aunt Tessa helped set it up. That's impossible. Aunt Tessa loves you. She's always talking about how you're the only decent man in the family. Something cold settled in my stomach. What do you mean she's always talking about that? Just, family stuff. She says Mom doesn't appreciate you, that she would treat you better if she had the chance. The pieces started falling into place. Tessa's satisfaction when she'd called me into that room. Her months of trying to figure out how to tell me. The way she'd orchestrated the whole reveal like she was directing a play. My sister hadn't been protecting me. She'd been eliminating competition. Dad, you look weird. Are you okay? I need to make a phone call. Can you finish cleaning up the tools? Lena nodded, still looking shaken. I stepped outside and dialed Brick Collins, my oldest friend and the owner of the gym where I'd been working out since high school. Jack, how you holding up, brother? I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Always am. Has Tessa been coming around the gym lately? Asking questions about me? Silence on the other end. Then, crap, Jack, how did you find out? Find out what? She's been coming by for weeks, asking about your schedule, whether you seemed happy at home, if you ever talked about Melissa. I thought she was planning some kind of surprise party or something. What did you tell her? Nothing much, just that you seemed stressed, that you and Melissa weren't exactly setting the world on fire in the romance department. Why? What's this about? I told him everything, the affair, the setup, Tessa's role in the whole thing. By the time I finished, Brick was cursing in 3 languages. That twisted witch. She played all of you. Yeah, well, game's not over yet. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to stop playing defense. Brick's gym smelled like sweat, determination, and broken dreams. It was the kind of place where men came to work out their problems with iron and leather, where the only judgment was whether you could handle the weight you put on the bar. I'd been coming here for 20 years, and it felt more like home than my actual house ever had. You sure about this? Brick asked, wrapping my hands for the heavy bag. He was built like a refrigerator with a beard, all muscle and loyalty. If I asked him to help me move a body, he'd ask what time and bring a shovel. I'm sure I can't just sit around and let them destroy my life. There's a difference between fighting back and starting a war. I threw a right hook that made the bag swing like a pendulum. They started the war. I'm just choosing my battlefield. The plan had been forming in my head for days. Melissa thought she was smart, controlling the narrative, painting me as the unstable husband having a breakdown. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. They all had. For 15 years, I'd been the reliable one, the steady provider, the guy who fixed things when they broke and never complained about the cost. I'd built my reputation on being dependable, honest, and predictable. Time to show them what unpredictable looked like. First thing I need to know, I said between combination, is whether Melissa has other secrets. What kind of secrets? The kind that end careers. Brick grinned, and it wasn't a nice expression. You know Tommy Rizzo? Runs the private investigation business out of the strip mall? The ex-cop? That's him. Owes me a favor from when his kid got in trouble with some loan sharks. He's good at finding things people don't want found. Set up a meeting. I spent another hour on the heavy bag, working out months of frustration and betrayal. Every punch was Owen's smug face. Every combination was Tessa's manipulative smile. Every round was another year of my marriage that had been built on lies. By the time I left the gym, my hands were raw and my head was clear. Tommy Rizzo looked exactly like what he was, a cop who'd seen too much and gotten out before it ended him. Gray hair, tired eyes, and the kind of mustache that went out of style in the 80s but somehow worked for him. Brick says you need information on your wife. That's right. Divorce case? Something like that. Tommy leaned back in his chair, studying me. I don't do divorce work anymore. Too messy, too personal. People get hurt. People are already hurt. Fair enough. What kind of information are you looking for? Financial records, phone logs, email accounts, travel history. I want to know everything about my wife's life for the past 2 years. That's expensive. How expensive? $5,000, half up front. I pulled out my checkbook. It was money I'd been saving for a new truck, but priorities had changed. How long? 2 weeks. Maybe less if she's sloppy. She's not sloppy. She's a defense attorney. Tommy smiled for the first time. Yeah, but she's also a cheater. And cheaters always make mistakes. They can't help themselves. While Tommy started his investigation, I began my own. I installed tracking software on the family computer, perfectly legal since it was registered in my name. I started paying attention to Melissa's schedule, her habits, her patterns. I began documenting everything. The first breakthrough came 3 days later. I was reviewing our credit card statements when I found them. Charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in the city during times when Melissa claimed to be working late, purchases at stores that specialized in lingerie I'd never seen. But the real discovery was the recurring charge to something called Apex Fitness Solutions. I knew that name. It was the high-end personal training service that operated out of the fancy gym downtown. The one that catered to lawyers and doctors and other people who had more money than sense. A quick Google search gave me everything I needed to know about Apex Fitness Solutions and their star trainer, Aiden Walsh. 28 years old, professionally handsome, with the kind of abs that made women forget they were married. I found his Instagram account and scrolled through months of posts. Professional photos, workout videos, motivational quotes about pushing past your limits and breaking through barriers. And there, buried in a post from 6 weeks ago, was a photo that made my blood run cold. Aiden at some charity fitness event, surrounded by clients. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was Melissa. She was looking at him the way she used to look at me, back when we were young and stupid and thought love could conquer anything. My wife wasn't just cheating with Owen, she was running a whole ridiculous harem. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Tommy with a message. Add this guy to the investigation. His response came back in minutes. Jesus Christ, Jack. How many affairs is she having? That's what I'm paying you to find out. But I was starting to suspect the answer was going to be more than I bargained for. Tommy Rizzo called me at 6 in the morning, 2 weeks to the day after I'd hired him. We need to meet, not over the phone. That bad? That complicated. I met him at a diner on the outskirts of town, The kind of place that served coffee strong enough to strip paint and minded its own business. Tommy was already there when I arrived, looking like he'd aged 10 years since our last meeting. "You want the good news or the bad news?" he asked as I slid into the booth across from him. "Start with the good news. I could use some." "The good news is your wife is definitely having affairs. Multiple affairs. Which means you've got grounds for divorce and probably won't have to pay alimony." "And the bad news?" Tommy opened a manila folder and spread its contents across the table. Photos, bank records, phone logs, hotel receipts. The documentation of my marriage's destruction, laid out like evidence at a crime scene. "The bad news is it's worse than you thought." He walked me through it systematically. Melissa and Owen had been meeting regularly for over a year, usually at the Marriott downtown. She'd been seeing Aidan Walsh for 6 months, paying him for personal training sessions that lasted 3 hours and took place at his apartment. But those were just the headliners. There's also Dr. Marcus Webb from the hospital where your sister works. Judge Harrison from the county courthouse. And this guy, he slid a photo across the table. David Chen, he's a prosecutor in the district attorney's office. I stared at the photos, my coffee growing cold in my hands. "How many?" "That I can prove, 6. But Jack, there might be more." "6?" I said the number out loud, testing how it felt. "My wife is having affairs with 6 different men. It gets worse." "How could it possibly get worse?" Tommy pulled out another set of documents. "Your sister Tessa isn't just enabling this, she's coordinating it." The papers showed text message logs, email chains, calendar appointments. Tessa had been acting as Melissa's scheduler, setting up meetings, providing alibis, even booking hotel rooms. She'd turned my wife's infidelity into a small business operation. "Why?" I asked. "Why would she do this?" "Near as I can figure, she's been in love with you for years. She thought if she could destroy your marriage, you'd turn to her for comfort. Classic homewrecker psychology." I thought about all the times Tessa had been there when Melissa wasn't, all the occasions when she'd shown up with dinner after a long day at work, or offered to help with household repairs, or just happened to stop by when I was feeling low. I'd thought she was being a good sister. "There's one more thing," Tommy said, "and this is the part that's going to hurt. More than finding out my wife is running a recreational sports league, your daughter Lena knows." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What do you mean she knows?" "She's been covering for your wife, providing alibis, lying about her whereabouts. Look at this." He showed me a series of text messages between Lena and Melissa, plans for fake study groups and non-existent sleepovers, elaborate stories about school events that never happened. My 16-year-old daughter had been an active participant in deceiving me. How long has she known? At least 6 months, maybe longer. I sat in that diner booth, surrounded by the evidence of my family's betrayal, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The anger I'd been carrying for weeks crystallized into something harder and colder: purpose. "I want copies of everything. Jack, what are you planning to do with this? I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve. Be careful. Revenge has a way of consuming people." I gathered up the photos and documents, organizing them into neat piles. "Tommy, these people destroyed my life for sport. They turned my marriage into a joke and my family into a conspiracy. They made me into a fool. So what are you going to do?" I smiled, and even I could hear the edge in it. "I'm going to stop being a fool." The first step was establishing my new base of operations. I couldn't work from home. Too many memories, too much of Melissa's influence. Instead, I rented a small office space above the hardware store downtown. Nothing fancy, just a desk, a computer, and a place to plan. I spent the next 3 days organizing everything Tommy had given me. I created files for each of Melissa's affairs, complete with dates, locations, and photographic evidence. I mapped out the timeline of deception, identifying patterns and connections I hadn't seen before. The picture that emerged was breathtaking in its scope. My wife hadn't just been unfaithful, she'd been running a systematic campaign of betrayal that involved my sister, my daughter, and half the professional men in the county. But they'd all made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed I would never fight back. Time to prove them wrong. I started with Owen because he was the easiest target. My brother-in-law ran a small construction supply business that depended on relationships with contractors like me. He'd built his reputation on being trustworthy, reliable, family-oriented, all things that became complicated when word got out about his extracurricular activities. The beauty of small-town business is that everyone knows everyone. Word travels fast, and reputation is everything. I didn't need to destroy Owen. I just needed to plant the right seeds and let human nature do the rest. I started at Murphy's Bar, the local watering hole, where contractors gathered after work to complain about clients and compare war stories. I bought a round for the house and waited for the conversation to turn to business. "Anyone else having problems with Owen Grant's supply company?" I asked casually. "What kind of problems?" asked Pete Morrison, whose bathroom renovation had started this whole mess. "Oh, probably nothing, just some scheduling issues. Deliveries showing up at weird times, if you know what I mean." I let that hang in the air for a moment, then changed the subject to the upcoming football season. But the seed was planted. Within a week, 3 contractors had called Owen to complain about scheduling irregularities. Within 2 weeks, he'd lost his biggest account. The second phase targeted Dr. Marcus Webb at the hospital. This one required more finesse since I needed Tessa's unwitting cooperation. I called my sister and suggested we meet for coffee to work things out. She agreed immediately, probably thinking she could manipulate me into forgiving everyone and playing happy family again. "Jack, I'm so glad you called," she said as we sat in the hospital cafeteria. "I've been worried about you." "Have you? That's interesting, considering you orchestrated the destruction of my marriage." Her face went pale. "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do, but that's not why I'm here." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of Dr. Webb leaving a hotel with Melissa. "I'm here because I thought you should know that one of your colleagues is having an affair with my wife." Tessa stared at the photo, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Now, I could report this to the hospital administration myself," I continued. "Medical professionals having affairs with married women, potential ethics violations, that sort of thing. Or you could handle it internally. Your choice. Jack, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted to destroy my marriage so you could have me for yourself. But here's the thing, Tessa. I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole if you were the last woman on earth." I left her sitting there, staring at the photo. 3 days later, Dr. Webb was transferred to a different department. A week after that, he requested a transfer to a hospital in another state. Judge Harrison was trickier. You can't just spread rumors about a sitting judge without consequences. But judges, like everyone else, have bosses. And those bosses take a very dim view of conduct that could compromise the integrity of the court system. I sent an anonymous package to the State Judicial Review Board. Photos of Harrison and Melissa at various hotels, credit card records showing he'd paid for the rooms, phone logs documenting their conversations during court hours. I didn't make any accusations, I just provided the evidence and let them draw their own conclusions. Harrison recused himself from all cases involving Melissa's law firm within a month. But my masterpiece was Aiden Walsh. The pretty boy personal trainer thought he was untouchable. Young, handsome, popular with the wealthy women who made up his client base. He posted constantly on social media about his dedication to fitness and his commitment to helping clients achieve their goals. I created a fake social media account and started following his posts, learning his patterns and routines. Then I began my campaign. It started small. Comments on his posts from fake accounts, questioning his qualifications, anonymous reviews on his business page mentioning unprofessional behavior and inappropriate relationships with clients. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be traced back to me, but enough to plant doubt. Then I escalated. I hired a different private investigator to follow Aiden for a week. The photos I got back were pure gold. Aiden meeting with 3 different married clients in situations that were clearly not professional. I sent anonymous packages to each woman's husband, along with a note. Thought you should know what your wife's personal trainer is really training her for. Within 2 weeks, Aiden had lost half his client base. Within a month, he'd been fired from the fancy gym and was working at a chain fitness center in the suburbs. But I was just getting started. Melissa finally came home on a Tuesday evening in October. I was in the kitchen, making dinner for one and enjoying the silence, when I heard her key in the lock. She walked in like she owned the place, which technically she did, but the dynamics had shifted in ways she hadn't figured out yet. "Jack, we need to talk." "Do we? I thought we covered everything pretty thoroughly in the guest room a few weeks ago." She set her purse on the counter with deliberate precision. Even after everything, she was still trying to control the situation through body language and tone. Old habits die hard. "I know what you've been doing." Making dinner? Yeah, it's a new hobby of mine. Turns out I'm pretty good at taking care of myself. You know what I mean. Owen lost the Peterson contract. Marcus Webb got transferred. Judge Harrison recused himself from the Morrison case. And Aiden what? Got fired for sleeping with his clients? That's terrible. Who could have seen that coming? Melissa's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw the calculation underneath. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how much I could prove, and how much damage I could still do. You're destroying innocent people's lives. I laughed, and the sound was bitter enough to curdle milk. Innocent? Melissa, these men were sleeping with my wife. In what universe does that make them innocent? It's not that simple. Actually, it's exactly that simple. You made choices. They made choices. Now you're all living with the consequences. She sat down at the kitchen table, and for a moment she looked older than her 41 years. What do you want, Jack? I want my 15 years back. I want the trust I wasted on you. I want the family I thought I had. I turned off the stove and faced her. But since I can't have any of that, I'll settle for justice. This isn't justice. This is revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing. Melissa reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. I've filed for divorce. I'm citing irreconcilable differences and requesting spousal support. I took the papers and glanced through them. Standard legal boilerplate, but with one interesting twist. She was claiming I'd been emotionally harmful and controlling throughout our marriage. Emotional misuse? That's rich coming from someone who turned our marriage into a recreational activity for half the county. I have documentation, witnesses, a pattern of controlling behavior and psychological manipulation. Do you? That's interesting. Because I have documentation too. I went to my briefcase and pulled out copies of everything Tommy had given me. Photos, bank records, hotel receipts, text messages. I spread them across the table like a poker player revealing a royal flush. Melissa's face went white as she recognized what she was looking at. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in this state, I said, and judges tend to frown on spouses who use marital assets to fund their affairs. That hotel bill you charged to our joint credit card, the one where you spent 3 days with Owen while I thought you were at a legal conference, that's going to be hard to explain. You can't use illegally obtained evidence. There's nothing illegal about hiring a private investigator to document my wife's infidelity. There's nothing illegal about reviewing credit card statements for accounts in my name. There's nothing illegal about taking photos in public places. I sat down across from her, and for the first time in months, I felt like I had the upper hand. Here's what's going to happen, Melissa. You're going to withdraw your divorce petition and file a new one. You're going to admit to adultery. You're going to waive any claim to spousal support. And you're going to agree to split our assets 50-50. And if I don't, then I release everything. Every photo, every receipt, every text message. I send copies to your law firm, the State Bar Association, and every newspaper in the county. I make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are. Melissa stared at the evidence for a long moment, then looked up at me with something that might have been respect. When did you become so ruthless? When I realized that being a good man in a world full of bad people just makes you a victim. She gathered up her papers and stood to leave. This isn't over, Jack. Yes, it is. You just haven't accepted it yet. After she left, I poured myself a drink and sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of my old life. Tomorrow I would start building a new one. But tonight I was going to savor the taste of victory. It had been a long time coming. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly once Melissa realized I held all the cards. She agreed to my terms without further negotiation, probably hoping to minimize the damage to her reputation. Her law firm quietly suggested she take a leave of absence while the personal matters were resolved. The State Bar Association opened an ethics investigation based on her relationship with Judge Harrison. But I wasn't finished yet. Lena had been avoiding me since the truth came out, staying with friends or at Melissa's temporary apartment downtown. Every attempt to reach out was met with silence or hostility. My daughter had chosen her and it wasn't mine. That changed on a cold November morning when she showed up at my new apartment, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Dad, can we talk? I let her in and made coffee while she sat at my small kitchen table, fidgeting with her phone. She looked younger than 16, vulnerable in a way that reminded me of the little girl who used to help me with home improvement projects. Mom says you're trying to destroy our family. Your mother destroyed our family. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. She made mistakes. Mistakes? I set a mug of coffee in front of her. Lena, your mother had affairs with 6 different men. She used our joint credit cards to pay for hotel rooms. She involved your aunt in covering up her lies. And she convinced you to lie for her. Those aren't mistakes. They're choices. Lena stared into her coffee cup. She said she was unhappy, that you didn't pay attention to her anymore. And you believe that justified what she did? I don't know. Maybe. I wanted her to be happy. What about my happiness? Did that matter to anyone? For the first time since she'd arrived, Lena looked directly at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed and filled with tears she was trying not to shed. I'm sorry, Dad. I know what we did was wrong. But I was scared that if Mom left, you'd be all alone. So instead you helped her cheat on me while pretending everything was normal? I thought maybe if I helped her get it out of her system, she'd come back to you, that things could go back to the way they used to be. I sat down across from my daughter and tried to find the right words. How do you explain to a 16-year-old that some things, once broken, can never be repaired? Lena, what your mother did wasn't about being unhappy or needing attention. It was about power and control and the thrill of getting away with something. She didn't want to fix our marriage. She wanted to have her cake and eat it too. But you're destroying people's lives. Uncle Owen lost his business. Dr. Webb had to move to another state. Judge Harrison might lose his job. They're facing the consequences of their actions, just like your mother is facing the consequences of hers. What about me? What are the consequences for me? It was a fair question and one I'd been wrestling with for weeks. Lena had participated in the deception, but she was also a child who'd been manipulated by adults she trusted. Where was the line between justice and cruelty? That depends on you, I said finally. You can keep making excuses for what happened, or you can learn from it and make better choices going forward. I want to make better choices, but I don't know how to fix this. You start by telling the truth, all of it. No more lies, no more cover-ups, no more pretending that what happened was somehow my fault. Lena nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. There's something else you need to know, about Aunt Tessa. What about her? She's been calling Mom, a lot. She says she has a plan to get you back. A chill ran down my spine. What kind of plan? I don't know all the details, but she's been talking about how you're just acting out because you're hurt, and how she can help you heal if Mom gets out of the picture permanently. Permanently? She wants Mom to move to another state, take a job somewhere far away. She says it would be better for everyone if Mom just disappeared from your life completely. I stared at my daughter, processing what she'd just told me. Tessa wasn't giving up. She was escalating. In her twisted mind, removing Melissa from the equation would clear the path for her to step into my wife's role. Lena, I need you to promise me something. Stay away from your aunt. Don't take her calls. Don't meet with her. Don't trust anything she tells you. Why? What do you think she'll do? I think she's dangerous. I think she's been dangerous all along, and I was too stupid to see it. After Lena left, I called Tommy Rizzo. I need you to investigate my sister. What am I looking for? Everything. Her finances, her relationships, her history. I want to know if she's ever done anything like this before. You think she's escalating? I think she's been playing a longer game than any of us realized. Tommy's investigation took 3 weeks. When he called me to meet, his voice was grim. Jack, we need to talk, and you're not going to like what I found. Tommy's second report was thinner than the first, but its contents were far more disturbing. We met at the same diner, but this time he looked like a man who'd seen something that would haunt his dreams. Your sister's been planning this for years, he said without preamble. Maybe decades. He spread out a new collection of documents, employment records, medical files, police reports, and psychological evaluations that painted a picture of systematic manipulation and calculated destruction. Tessa's first husband died in a car accident 12 years ago. Single car crash, late at night, no witnesses. The police ruled it accidental. But look at this. He showed me an insurance policy that Tessa had taken out on her husband 6 months before his death. $1 million policy with double indemnity for accidental death. Could be a coincidence, Tommy continued, except for what happened next. She used the insurance money to move here, specifically to this town, right after you and Melissa got married. She said she wanted to be closer to family. Yeah, well, she was closer to something. Look at this. The next document was a psychiatric evaluation from Tessa's college years. The clinical language was dry and professional, but the diagnosis was chilling. Subject exhibits characteristics consistent with erotomania and obsessive attachment disorder, recommended for continued therapy and monitoring. Erotomania? It's a delusional belief that someone is in love with you, even when they've never shown romantic interest. Usually it's directed at celebrities or public figures, but sometimes it focuses on people in the subject's personal life. You're saying Tessa has been obsessed with me since college? I'm saying she's been obsessed with you since high school, maybe longer. Tommy pulled out a yearbook, my high school yearbook from senior year. Someone had gone through it with a red pen, circling every photo of me, drawing hearts around my name, and writing Mrs. Tessa Archer in the margins. Where did you get this? Tessa's apartment. She has a whole shrine dedicated to you. Photos from family gatherings, newspaper clippings from your business, even pictures she took of you without your knowledge. The evidence kept coming. Credit card records showing Tessa had hired private investigators to follow me and Melissa throughout our marriage. Hotel receipts proving she'd been staying in rooms adjacent to ours during family vacations, watching and listening. Phone records documenting hundreds of calls to my house when she knew I wouldn't be home, just to hear my voice on the answering machine. She's been sabotaging your marriage from the beginning, Tommy said. Little things at first, spreading rumors about Melissa to your friends, creating situations where you'd fight, encouraging Melissa's worst impulses. The affairs? She didn't just enable them, she orchestrated them. Look at this. He showed me a series of emails between Tessa and Owen, dating back 2 years. She'd been working on him for months, convincing him that Melissa was unhappy, that she deserved better than a boring contractor, that he could provide the excitement she was missing. She did the same thing with all of them, identified men who were vulnerable or ambitious or just plain stupid, then manipulated them into pursuing your wife. She wanted to destroy your marriage, but she needed it to look like Melissa's fault, so you'd turn to her for comfort. I thought about all the times Tessa had been there during marital rough patches, all the occasions when she'd offered support and understanding while subtly criticizing Melissa, all the moments when I'd thought I was lucky to have such a caring sister. There's more, Tommy said, and this is the part that really worries me. He pulled out a police report from Tessa's hometown, filed 3 months after her husband's death. A woman named Sarah Chen had reported being stalked and harassed by Tessa, who believed that Sarah was having an affair with her dead husband. Sarah Chen moved to another state to get away from your sister, but not before Tessa destroyed her marriage, got her fired from her job, and had her committed for a psychiatric evaluation. Committed? Tessa convinced everyone that Sarah was delusional, that she was making up the affair allegations to cover her own mental illness. Sarah spent 3 weeks in a psychiatric facility before the truth came out. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Tessa didn't just obsess over men. She systematically destroyed anyone she perceived as competition. She'd done it to Sarah Chen. She'd done it to Melissa. And if I didn't stop her, she'd do it to anyone else who got in her way. There's one more thing, Tommy said. Tessa's been buying supplies, cleaning chemicals, rope, plastic sheeting, the kind of stuff you'd need to what? To make someone disappear. I stared at the evidence spread across the diner table, my mind racing through the implications. Tessa wasn't just mentally ill, she was dangerous, and she was escalating. I need to call the police. With what? Circumstantial evidence and a psychiatric evaluation from 20 years ago? Jack, she's been careful. Everything she's done has been legal, technically speaking. Manipulation isn't a crime. Neither is obsession, as long as she doesn't act on it. So what do I do? You be very, very careful, and you make sure you're never alone with her. I gathered up the documents, my hands shaking slightly. How did I miss this? How did I not see what she was? Because she's good at what she does. She's had years of practice. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every car in my rearview mirror looked suspicious. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Tessa had been playing a game I didn't even know existed, and I was just now learning the rules. But the game wasn't over yet, and this time, I was going to make sure I won. I didn't have to wait long for Tessa to make her move. She called me the next evening, her voice bright and cheerful as if the last few months hadn't happened. Jack, I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner, just the two of us. I think it's time we cleared the air. Where did you have in mind? How about the cabin, like old times? I'll cook that pot roast you used to love when we were kids. The family cabin by the lake, 20 miles outside of town, isolated, no neighbors, no witnesses, perfect for whatever Tessa had planned. Sure, I said. What time? 7 o'clock? I'll have everything ready. After she hung up, I called Tommy and filled him in on the plan. You're not seriously thinking of going alone? I need to end this. One way or another. Jack, this woman might be a butcher. She's definitely unstable. And you want to meet her in the middle of nowhere? I'll be careful, but I can't keep looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. I spent the afternoon preparing. I charged my phone, made sure the GPS tracking was enabled, and left detailed notes about where I was going and why. I also called Brick and told him to contact the police if he didn't hear from me by midnight. The drive to the cabin took me through winding country roads that I'd traveled countless times as a child. Tessa and I had spent summers here with our grandparents, swimming in the lake and exploring the woods. It had been a place of innocence and joy. Now it felt like driving to my own funeral. Tessa's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. The cabin looked exactly the same as it had 20 years ago. Rustic wood siding, stone chimney, wraparound porch with rocking chairs. Smoke was rising from the chimney and warm lights spilled from the windows. It looked peaceful, inviting, completely normal. I knocked on the door, my hand resting casually near the knife I'd clipped to my belt. Jack, come in, come in. You must be freezing. Tessa looked different. Her hair was styled the way Melissa used to wear hers. Her makeup was more dramatic than usual. She was wearing a dress I recognized, one that Melissa had bought for our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. You look nice, I said, stepping inside and scanning the room for anything unusual. Thank you. I wanted tonight to be special. The cabin smelled like pot roast and candles. The dining table was set for two with our grandmother's good china. Classical music played softly from a portable speaker. If I didn't know better, I'd think this was a romantic dinner, which, I realized with growing unease, was exactly what Tessa intended. Can I get you a drink? I have that bourbon you like. Just water, thanks. She looked disappointed but went to the kitchen to get my water. I used the opportunity to examine the room more carefully. The family photos on the mantel had been rearranged. Pictures of Melissa had been removed or turned face down, while photos of Tessa and me were prominently displayed. Here you go. She handed me a glass of water and gestured toward the couch. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes. Why don't we sit and talk? I remained standing. What did you want to talk about? About us. About our future. Our future? Tessa sat on the couch and patted the cushion beside her. Jack, I know these past few months have been difficult, but now that Melissa is out of the picture, we can finally be together the way we were meant to be. Tessa, we're siblings. We were never meant to be together in any way other than family. Her smile faltered for just a moment, then returned brighter than before. We're not blood relatives, we both know that. It was true. Tessa had been adopted when she was 3 years old, after her biological parents died in a house fire. But she'd been my sister for 30 years. The distinction she was making felt meaningless and disturbing. That doesn't matter, you're my sister. I love you as a sister, nothing more. You don't mean that. She stood up and moved closer to me. I've seen how you look at me, how you've always looked at me, the way you used to protect me when we were children, the way you still protect me now. I protect you because you're family. No, it's more than that. It's always been more than that. She reached out to touch my face, and I stepped back. Tessa, stop. This is wrong. Her expression changed, the cheerful mask slipping to reveal something cold and calculating underneath. Wrong? What's wrong is watching the man I love waste 15 years on a woman who never deserved him. What's wrong is standing by while she humiliated you with half the men in town. You orchestrated those affairs. I created opportunities. Melissa made her own choices. You manipulated everyone. Owen, the others, even Melissa herself. You destroyed my marriage. I freed you from a marriage that was already dead. I did what you didn't have the courage to do yourself. The pretense was gone now. Tessa's voice was sharp and bitter, her eyes bright with an intensity that made my skin crawl. And now you're free to be with someone who truly loves you, someone who's loved you for decades, someone who's been waiting patiently for you to realize what was right in front of you all along. I will never be with you, Tessa. Not in the way you want. Not ever. She stared at me for a long moment, her face cycling through emotions, hurt, anger, disbelief, and finally rage. You'll change your mind, she said quietly. Once you understand that I'm the only one who truly knows you, the only one who's ever really loved you. I'm leaving. I turned toward the door, but Tessa moved to block my path. No, you're not. We're going to have dinner. We're going to talk. And you're going to realize that everything I've done, I did for us. Get out of my way, Tessa. I can't do that, Jack. I can't let you leave. Not when we're so close to having everything we've always wanted. That's when I noticed the knife in her hand. Tessa, put the knife down. I'm not going to hurt you, Jack. I would never hurt you. But I can't let you leave. Not yet. She was holding a carving knife from the kitchen, the blade reflecting the candlelight. Her grip was steady, professional. This wasn't a moment of passion. It was a calculated escalation. You're scaring me. Good. Maybe now you'll listen. She gestured toward the couch with the knife. Sit down. Please, let me explain everything. I sat but kept my weight forward, ready to move if necessary. Tessa remained standing, the knife held casually at her side like it was a natural extension of her hand. Do you remember when we were children and you saved me from drowning in the lake? You were 7. You went out too far and got caught in the current. You jumped in after me, even though you weren't a strong swimmer. You risked your life to save mine. That's what big brothers do. No, it's what men do for the women they love. Even then, you knew. Even at 12 years old, you understood that we belonged together. I stared at my sister, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. The delusion ran so deep that she'd rewritten our entire childhood to support her fantasy. In her mind, every act of brotherly protection had been a declaration of romantic love. Tessa, you need help. Professional help. I tried getting help. After my first husband died, I saw therapists for years. They tried to convince me that my feelings for you were wrong, that I needed to move on, find someone else. Maybe you should have listened to them. I tried. I married Robert because he reminded me of you. Same build, same sense of humor, same way of fixing things with his hands. I thought if I could make it work with him, I could forget about you. But it didn't work. He wasn't you. He could never be you. And eventually I realized I was wasting my life trying to replace something irreplaceable. So you ended him. The words hung in the air between us. Tessa's expression didn't change, but her grip on the knife tightened. Robert's death was an accident. Was it? Or did you decide that if you couldn't have me, at least you could eliminate the obstacle that was keeping you away from me? You don't understand. Robert was becoming suspicious. He found some letters I'd written to you but never sent. He was threatening to tell you about my feelings, to ruin everything. So you sabotaged his car. I loosened a lug nut, just one. I thought maybe he'd have a minor accident, maybe break a leg or something. I didn't mean for him to die. But she had meant it. I could see the truth in her eyes. She'd ended her husband to clear the path to me, just like she'd destroyed my marriage for the same reason. And then you moved here. I waited 2 years. I thought that was respectable. Long enough to grieve, but not so long that you might find someone else. I was already married when you moved here. To the wrong woman. I could see that immediately. Melissa was cold, ambitious, selfish. She didn't appreciate what she had. She didn't love you the way I loved you. So you decided to destroy my marriage. I decided to show you who she really was. All those affairs, I didn't force her into those men's beds, Jack. I just created opportunities and let her true nature reveal itself. Tessa began pacing, the knife moving with her like a conductor's baton. She was telling me her story, and I realized she'd been waiting years to share it with someone, with me. It took longer than I expected. Melissa was more devoted to maintaining appearances than I anticipated. But eventually, her need for excitement overcame her caution. You manipulated Owen. Owen was easy. He'd been attracted to Melissa for years, but was too much of a coward to act on it. I just gave him permission and opportunity. And the others? Each one was carefully selected. Men who could give Melissa something you couldn't. Power, excitement, youth, status. I made sure she had access to everything she thought she was missing. You destroyed 6 men's lives. I revealed their true characters. If they'd been honorable men, they wouldn't have been tempted. The logic was twisted but internally consistent. In Tessa's mind, she was a force of nature, revealing truth and eliminating obstacles. She wasn't the villain. She was the hero of her own story. And now that Melissa's gone, you think I'll just fall into your arms? I think you'll realize that I'm the only person who's ever truly understood you. The only person who's ever put your happiness above their own. By destroying my family, by freeing you from people who were using you. Melissa used you for financial security and social respectability. Lena used you as a source of guilt and obligation. Owen used you for business connections. I'm the only one who loves you for who you are. She stopped pacing and looked directly at me. I'm the only one who's ever really seen you, Jack. You're insane. The word hit her like a physical blow. Her face contorted with rage, and she raised the knife. Don't you ever say that to me again. I am not insane. I am not delusional. I'm the only sane person in this entire situation. Then prove it. Put down the knife and let me leave. I can't do that. If you leave now, you'll go to the police. You'll tell them about Robert, about the affairs, about everything. And they'll take me away from you. Tessa, but if you stay, if you give us a chance, you'll see that I'm right. You'll see that we belong together. That we've always belonged together. She moved closer and I tensed, ready to fight for my life. I've waited 30 years for this moment, Jack. I'm not going to let anyone or anything take it away from me. Not even you. That's when I heard the sirens in the distance. Tessa heard them too. Her face went pale, and she looked toward the windows as if she could see through the darkness to the road beyond. You called the police. I told someone where I was going. They were supposed to call for help if I didn't check in. No, this isn't how it's supposed to happen. The sirens were getting closer. Tessa looked around wildly, as if searching for an escape route that didn't exist. They'll separate us. They'll lock me away, and you'll never understand what we could have had together. It's over, Tessa. Put down the knife. Instead, she raised it higher, pointing it at her own chest. If I can't have you, then no one can. And if you can't have me, then you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that you lost the only person who ever truly loved you. Don't do this. Goodbye, Jack. I hope someday you'll understand that everything I did for love. The sirens were almost at the cabin now. Red and blue lights flickered through the windows. In seconds, the police would burst through the door. But Tessa was done waiting. She smiled at me one last time, an expression of pure, twisted love, and drove the knife into her chest. I lunged forward, trying to stop her, but it was too late. She collapsed to the floor, dark stains spreading across the front of Melissa's dress. Jack, she whispered, her voice already fading. I love you. I've always loved you. Then she was gone, and the police were breaking down the door, and my nightmare was finally over. But as I knelt beside my sister's body, holding her hand while the paramedics worked frantically to save a life that was already lost, I realized that some victories come at a price too high to bear. I had won. I had exposed the truth, destroyed my enemies, and emerged victorious from a war I never wanted to fight. But in winning, I had lost everything that mattered. My marriage was over, my relationship with my daughter was shattered, my sister was dead. And I was alone with the knowledge that love, twisted into obsession, could destroy everything it claimed to protect. The police questioned me for hours. The district attorney reviewed the evidence and declined to press charges. The media called it a tragic family dispute. Melissa moved to another state. Lena went to live with her maternal grandparents. Owen left town in disgrace. And I was left with an empty house, a successful business, and the hollow satisfaction of absolute victory. 6 months later, I sold everything and moved to a different city where no one knew my name or my story. I started over, built a new life, found a measure of peace. But sometimes late at night, I still hear Tessa's voice. I love you. I've always loved you. And I wonder if the price of winning was worth paying.